brought to you almost live from the Dude in the Basement Studios. Why? Because that's where the good stuff is. It's Sips, Suds, and Smokes with your smoking host, the good old boys. Suds, Suds, Suds. It's time for more Suds.
Hey everybody, welcome to this very special SUDS episode. Mike has taken a trip on a boat and is stuck on that boat. Therefore, I am now in charge. This episode is where everything good in life is worth discussing. And today we're going to talk about our show and tell summer seasonals. With me today are our great and amazing beer hosts. They are good old boy Mike.
Howdy, everybody.
Talking from the boat, mind you.
Out here with the geese. I'm just admiring. Yo, George, where you going?
Our illustrious Reverend Mark.
Pass me a chalice of your favorite beer.
And our good old boy Dave.
Broovies.
Hi, yes. Our SUD segment is all about beer, and yes, more beer. Here's what we're going to discuss in this segment. Each one of our great hosts is going to be talking about one of their favorite summer seasonals, and then the rest of us will have the opportunity to rate those favorite seasonals.
I'm just out here treading in the lake.
Yes. Occasionally we'll just throw a flash in his way so that he can talk with us. So, today, good old boy Dave will get the honor of going over our SUDS ratings.
Thank you very much. We'll be tasting and discussing these beers and rating them with those SUDS ratings plus our signature belching sounds. Here are those ratings now. Number 1, that sucks. Give me anything but a bud. Number 2, was that a belch? Number 3, ah, what a relief. Number 4, a body should really not make that sound. And number 5, listen to that hang time, give me another.
I think that is the sound of boat beer.
I believe so.
Belching geese.
It's when the seas get a little choppy, you know. Yes. Start making those noises.
Just out here trying to start her up, boys.
Well, okay, so today's show is a show and tell episode, which are one of our favorite episodes. Each host has brought a beer to talk about today. Now, the rest of the hosts will have a chance to try each of the other beers, and then, of course, they will give their ratings on said beer. We pick summer seasonals for this show and tell. Now, this is part of our boat beer series. We are adding to our list of beer pairings with activities. Now, we are not suggesting driving a boat while drinking, because although this is illegal in many places now...
You know who you are.
Exactly. But the rest of people on the boat can still enjoy. So, get out that sunscreen, slather it all over yourselves, bring out the floating keychains, and get ready to lose your first pair of sunglasses at the bottom of the lake, because we are talking about these summer seasonal beers. So, my first question to my beloved co-host today is, exactly what type of beers do most people look for in a summer seasonal? Ladies.
Well.
Wow.
Quantity.
Yeah.
Something showing some skin. We're talking about beer. What are we talking about again?
We're talking about beer.
Sorry. I knew I'd get that wrong. Let's see.
Just because the view is better from the boat.
Well, I think, one of the things that always strikes me with summer is not something that's really heavy,
Yeah.
And something I can go to the, convenience store and find rather quickly. It seems like you always wind up with a planned activity, and the last thing you remember is what beer you're taking out on the water. It seems like you remember everything else, but beverages seems to be one of the last things, and a lot of it is because people want stuff that's cold.
True.
So they're kind of buying it usually in close proximity to the lake. So wet, cold, skinless. I'm sorry. Let's see. I like something that appeals to a very broad range palate. I don't know. That's kind of my definition of boat beer.
I think, too, like lower ABV, something that you can drink in
all
quantity because you're going to be out.
Day.
Lawnmower beers, boat beers, summer beers, it's all the same thing. Sitting by the pool, whatever you're going to be doing, it's going to be hot. You're going to be sweating a lot. You want something to keep you cool. So, wheat beers are popular, light lagers.
Something that goes well with Canadian Geese food.
Session beers are Goose Island, maybe. I don't know. Session beers. Okay, wait. Anchor has the old foghorn.
That's
there
true.
You go. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
hey, you keep rattling out those sounds. I'll name a beer around it.
Someday.
So, there we go. Reverend Mark.
Well, for me, a summer beer is about neutrality. That is, it's neutral to the palate mostly. Maybe a little bit of malt, but not so much that you can't drink about 6 cans.
I thought he was going to say cases.
Yeah.
That's what he meant.
I think also a beer that doesn't really change much qualitatively if you really crash it down and make it extremely cold.
Sure.
As we know that most the beers that we like to talk about, you start them out cold and let them warm on the shelf, and then they kind of open up. None of that applies to the summer boat beer. So
Right,
I think to me, it's neutrality of palate.
Yeah.
And also a beer that tastes, much better when it's just like ice cold.
Straight out of the cooler.
Straight out of the cooler, yeah.
Should also go well with potato salad.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's also a good thing to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, and frankfurters and grilled burgers.
No, just potato salad.
Okay.
That's all I like.
But this is a little bit of a conundrum because, we are beer nerds here.
Yep.
And we are
tough
talking,
to get great beer on the water.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And we're talking to beer nerds as well, our listeners. So where do you find that balance of what is something that is light,
Yeah,
that is
out there in the lake
flavorful?
going, I really want a 120-minute IPA.
But,
nope.
yeah, no.
I don't think so.
Right. So what's the next choice?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get talking about some beers. So today we are going to be talking about the Star Hill Star Saison, the Boulevard Smokestack Series, their Reboot White IPA, Victory Brewing Company's Helios Ale, and last but not least, the Schalafy Summer Lager. So, up first, let's throw a flare out to the water and see if good old boy Mike can talk about his favorite beer.
Yep. So the beer I brought today for the boat beer series here, so I'm just leaning back in the boat, watching the geese go by, just paddling along. So the story that I have about finding this beer is I was looking at summer seasonals that were available, and Schalafy has moved a lot of their summer seasonals to be in a can, and I just fell in love with the idea that their beer was going to be available in a can to begin with. And I think one of the things that I always really enjoy is a really great lager. There's something about having a good, crisp lager in the summer that is just very appealing. And the fact that I liked their summer lager, and I knew that it might have been a good candidate. And when I saw it in a can, I was just, I was really kind of, okay. And we had a lot of summer seasonals to go through, to kind of shorten down the list. And this was the one I had picked, kind of walking into this, and the one that I really wanted to stick with. First off, definitely the fact that it's in the can, but it fulfills a lot of the other things that I think of in a summer beer, in that I want it to be light. It needs to appeal to a lot of people that are in the boat with a broad range of palates. I can hand this to somebody that may like, an InBev, product that they've been drinking for the last 25 years and they've never had anything else. Hand this to them and go, really, you should try this. And I think it really kicks up the quality of what they would have enjoyed, quite substantially. Mm-hmm. So, just the packaging, moving it to a can, but it struck me as, a really great lager in the world of craft beers to take along. So that was definitely why I wanted to bring this beer for everybody to enjoy. So what do you think of it, Reverend Mark?
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, I think first of all that, as we consider what has a certain level of hang time, if we will, with the summer warrior, that the Schalafy in particular that you mentioned, I think really allows us to sort of pace ourselves into a really long day. So, you make a good point also that, and I say this from the standpoint of being a home brewer, is that I don't have the always the privilege or the time or the cooler space to lager beer. Yeah. But I especially appreciate good lagers when the Fahrenheit keeps going up and up and up. I have a Bohemian Pilsner right now that I brewed a couple of months ago, and I've saved it just for the summer. For the summer. Yeah.
Well, and it's I think one of the things that's I'm sorry, before you go around, what was your SUDS rating on my beer?
I'll give it a 3.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed that this is warming up a bit, and it got a little sweeter.
Yeah. You don't want that to happen. No.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention a couple other things about this as I was introducing it. The ABV is 4.5%, so you can have about 10 of these and still be standing.
Good session beer, yeah.
And it's they've actually classified it as a Helios lager, which tends to be a little sweeter, as opposed to a pure Pilsner malt lager that you may have with a true Pilsner style. So if this seems a little bit sweeter, that's the reason why it's supposed to be. Good old boy Dave.
Well, I'm a big Schalafy fan, first off, and I'm a big light lager fan. Well, craft beer light lagers, let me say that. And as any good boater will tell you, beer in a can is your best friend.
I know. I'm standing out there trying to start this thing all day.
That's right.
long. Can't get gotta get my beer going.
In case your cooler goes overboard, you can go rescue those cans.
Yeah, gotta go over here and chip me some geese.
I think it's a good springtime or summer lager, which is what the Helios beers are usually for, and it's got that sweetness, but as long as you keep it cold and finish it cold, it's a very delicious beer. So I would give this session beer a nice 4.
So I love this beer, in case anyone's asking. What I like about this Schalafy beer is that it is the aficionado's version of, a lager. No offense to the InBevs in the world and the Bud Lights and all that, but this is the craft beer man's version of that beer.
She said the B word.
I did. I know. I'm sorry. But I really like it. I mean, because as it warms up, it's a little sweeter, but it still maintains a lot of its flavor right from the get-go. So I think it's, whether you're out on the boat for 4 days versus 1 day, it's still going to be a good flavorful beer to have. And the fact that it's in a can, extra bonus points, definitely. And I'm going to give this beer a 4. Thanks for bringing that along, Mike. So,
Mike.
I know, really.
Just when you thought nobody else could do that, right?
Exactly.
So Mark and I have a close relative that she constantly gets us interchanged with each other. Mark. So, anyway.
I'm channeling her.
We like it. It's a flowing point of affection.
We're one syllable sons.
That's right.
You guys you do really look alike. So.
Yes, you do. In so many ways.
Always.
All right, Reverend Mark, what did you bring today?
Well, I would like to introduce the Star Hill Saison.
Woohoo!
I think this is a good saison for summer fare, especially. It's a little bit lighter on the gravity or alcohol side. Tasting it once again, it has a slight bit of residual sweetness, but not so much that if you had a couple of bottles that you would be kind of finished for the day and you'd want something lighter. I think it's something that you could really nurse along for the day. It's not like the Uber boat beer, so I wouldn't give it like a perfect rating, but I'd say if you would like to introduce just a slight bit of complexity that the Belgian beers and especially saisons are known for to your sort of average beer drinker out on a very hot day on the lake, that this would be one to to try to suggest. There's a little bit of honey aspect to it, kind of a fresh mown kind of hay aspect to it as well. I think it may not be the very best saison I've ever had in my life, but I think if I talk about saison in relation to it being a summer beer, that I think this is a really, really good kind of bridge beer to bring people over to the right side. So I'll give it a 4.
Ooh.
Oh, very good. All right. Good old boy Dave, what do you think?
Well, I kind of agree with Reverend Mark, as I usually do. When we talk about a lot of different styles, especially sours and Brett beers, imperials and things like that, when we bring out certain examples, a lot of times we will call them introductory beers or bridge beers or things like that. So is this the pinnacle of saisons? No, it's definitely not. But at the same time, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because saisons are one of those beers you either like them or you don't. They have a very strong and distinctive flavor a lot of times. This one is very easy drinking. I think with most people, if they're not a beer nerd, you better wait till it's about their 3rd or 4th beer before you introduce it, because it still does have some distinct flavors to it. But I find it very drinkable. I could drink this on a boat, and I would give it a 4.
Very good. Well, I agree with everyone. I find it a really good beginner saison. Very light, very flavorful. Yeah, there's that little twang, of the saisons that the aficionados tend to look for. But I think it's a good introductory saison for people that are bridging the gap. And again, on a boat, you don't want a tremendous amount of flavor. And this is just that right blend of flavors to make it a little bit more than drinking one of those other beers. So like you guys, I will give this a 4 as well.
It's a saison on training wheels.
It is. Very good. Very good. Okay, flares up. Hey, Mike, are you out there? What's your version of this?
I'm over here hanging out with my little fishing buddies and got my little boat going along. We're out here about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's high noon out here on the lake. Well, the Star Hill Saison was a great choice. Thanks for bringing it. It was interesting, the choices we're going through today. It's such a wide variety, and I like the fact that there's really a good beer in any one of these 4 that we're talking about today, and I like this one in the mix because I think it's going to strike some people that are looking for something that's maybe a bit more sweeter. Then we talked about the Schalafy was, I think, is a bit more dry. This is the opposite end. The tasting notes I read around the Star Hill Saison were sweet malt. Those were the two words that came to my mind, really quick around this. And I thought it was very approachable Saison. I like Julianna's description as an entry gateway Saison, if there is such a thing. There's really no bittering agent around this, and so I really think it will appeal to a broad palate base. My SUDS rating for the Star Hill Saison is going to be 3.
Perfect. All right, moving on. Good old boy Dave. Why don't we talk about your boat beer?
Oh, okay. I was waiting to see my what. Okay.
Well,
we're going to talk about your toes
Excuse
today.
me?
We're going to talk about your elbows.
Hey.
What were you thinking, man?
4 or 5 beers into this thing, you never know where this show's going to go.
more Canadian Geese are going to
Some,
fly by. What's going on down here?
We got movies and foghorns, and who knows what's going on around here. So,
let's talk about the
Boulevard
Reboot
Smokestack Series Reboot White IPA. Okay, I'm going to give you a little disclaimer right up front, folks. This is a 7.4% ABV beer, so it is definitely an IPA in that respect. Very light body, spicy, very Belgian, not overly hoppy. So, I would hesitate to even call it an IPA. I think it's just a nice light Belgian ale. I would say with the flavor, it's a little bit like the Star Hill Saison. It's a good introductory beer. I don't know if it's definitely a boat beer just because of the ABV. Maybe an evening boat cruise,
or if you're out on the Titanic,
if it's getting ready to go down, you pound one of these and you'll float away. Who cares? So, but I do think it's a really tasty beer. Like I said, it's got a light effervescence to it and a little bit of spiciness. So I think it's definitely something you would enjoy at some time of day on the boat, maybe at the end of the day.
Very good. I really enjoyed this beer. It's very, for it being a 7.4 ABV, there's a lot going on to this thing. But it's really enjoyable. Really great color, very crisp, very flavorful, of course. But I think this is a good beer for those true beer nerds that are out there that want something more than just the generic boat beer. This is certainly not your grandma's boat beer. Unless
your grandma drinks IPAs.
Well, and there are some grandmas out there that can pack down a couple of good IPAs. That being said, this is really flavorful. I mean, as it opens up, there's just even more coming out, and I'm really enjoying it even more now that it's warmed up a bit, which to me is a good boat beer. So for this, I'm giving this a 4 as well. Okay, Mike.
I'm out here. Well, we moved around to the third code day. Ain't no fish over here. Ain't nothing going on. I keep on moving around. Place to place. All I know is got all this beer I got to try.
Where are you going fishing? Like Alabama or something?
No, just out back. Just out back. So I guess the first thing that struck me about this was not in our Boulevard brewery takeover edition, and it really great that we were able to pick this up. So for those of you that are interested in other beers by Boulevard, we actually have a brewery takeover edition covering a broad range of other beers from Boulevard Brewing, but this was not one of them. So thank you very much for bringing this. I think the easy thing to say out of this is, of all of the beer we have on this show, this was my favorite. I'm a huge fan of Boulevard. They just make such really great beer, and my tasting notes for the Reboot White IPA I thought was very malt forward. It had really great citrus coming through, both in the nose as well as through the beer itself. It just had really great balance. Were a lot of the things that I liked about this. I think probably the only thing for really moving it into a boat beer category is the distribution. So the Smokestack series is only available in bomber bottles.
True.
And so I think that is a bit of a bummer, to take a bomber, out on a boat. You really have to make sure if you're going to pop it open, there are a lot of people around there are going to enjoy this because it's going to be a big bottle, or you're going to be sitting there in the back of the boat watching the geese, go by and wondering what's going on and going, I still got half a bottle left here, Jed.
Give it to the geese.
Yeah, definitely. But I really think it would pair well with food. I can imagine having, on a day on the lake, or out in the ocean, and I really think this was absolutely my favorite beer. My SUDS rating for a Reboot White IPA is going to be a 4. Wow,
very good. Reverend Mark, what did you think of Boulevard Smokestack Series Reboot White IPA?
Yeah, I agree that of all the beers that we sampled on the table just a little while ago, that in terms of what beer did you like the most, this clearly is the beer I like the most. So, I just echo all of the various descriptions about what makes this beer, well balanced, gives it, a certain kind of flair for bringing the Belgian and the American IPA kind of traditions together. All that's really very interesting. I would say that this is not the sort of entry-level boat beer that I would recommend. This would be the beer at the end of the day that we would then, sort of once you have bridged that gap, between the land of InBev and the land of, true sort of beer euphoria, that this would be sort of the payoff at the end of the day. I certainly wouldn't start off with this particular beer. But, it's just, I just actually finished a bottle of this, I think about a week ago, and I'm looking for another bottle someplace. Can't get it anywhere close by, so the next time I see one, I'm snatching one up. So I'll give it a 4 for sure.
Wow.
Very good. Now on to me. Exactly.
I'm sorry, wrong button.
Wait a second. What was that?
I'm sorry. I missed that button.
Whatever.
The Blackhawks just scored. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay, but they would have done a better noise than that.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, me being from this fine state of Pennsylvania, I decided to bring Victory Brewing Company's Helios Ale. It's their version of a Belgian Farmhouse Ale. Now, what I like about this is, granted, it's a nice light beer, and there we go. It does have an ABV of 7.5%, which is a little intimidating, but on the flavor aspect of this, it really doesn't taste like it's a 7.5% ABV. It's very light. It's just got a really... The malt bill on it is just essentially 2-row. However, they do use whole leaf hops for this beer, which I find really interesting because it gives it a very light hoppy flavor. It's not, sometimes I tend to think that the pellets, give you a very strong hoppy flavor, no matter what type of pellet hop you're using. This has got a very light flavor. It's got a bit of lemon peel flavor to it, and there's a little bit of a hint of black pepper, but this again is not going to be that introductory when I first get out on the boat, this is what I'm going to crack open. However, this is going to be like the midday, okay, I want something a little bit more substantial than the InBev water beer, so to speak. But I really find this enjoyable, and for craft beer nerds, it's a really good price point for this for this beer, and a good summer boat beer. All right, good old boy Mike.
Totally agree.
Can you hear me?
I'm out here.
What's your take, buddy?
You know, we're trying to get back to the dock sometime, Dave.
Tomorrow.
Keep on trying to start this thing up, move around. All these stupid geese flying around.
Is he in Canada or is he in the South?
I know.
I'm confused.
I have no idea. I don't think the geese are confused too.
Yeah. They've probably been having some of this beer.
I was going to say,
They're flying around in
how
circles.
much have you been
There's another
feeding
one,
them?
right? Crapped all over me again.
Wow.
It would have to go with boat beer. I mean,
Yes.
birds flying and bird poop all go together.
Exactly.
Well, luckily you've got a thick layer of
Yeah.
sunscreen to help wipe off that poo.
Well, so a very interesting choice that you brought today, the Helios. This is a beer that we have actually reviewed on the show before. I believe it was on one of the early episodes. I think it was a beer that
Absolutely, I brought it.
that
yeah.
Reverend Mark covered, and it was one of his top picks. What's strange is that when I had it today, I was channeling some of what I remembered the first time I had around it. I was not particularly a fan of this, and it was just very, very dry. I thought it was a little bit astringent, and I don't know. It's just something that I can't see, having on a boat, for the day. But you mentioned probably one of the one thing that I've heard a lot of people say about this beer. Oh my God, how this beer is so good for the price point. I think it's under $5 a bottle for a 20 ounce bottle, and so there's a lot of people that that price point appeals to them. For some reason, this just has not hit my palate ever, and. I know that Reverend Mark really thought an awful lot about it. I've certainly seen, other people's comments about it. Unfortunately, my SUDS rating for Helios is actually going to be a 2, so sorry about that. Reverend Mark.
Well, you've already sort of let the cat out of the bag about how I feel about this beer. Part of it is the price point. I mean, I won't mention the beer store that I go to on a regular basis, but consistently, this is a bomber. That while I'm kind of like looking through the new inventory and being highly selective about what's new to our city, I will usually take a bomber of this along with me because it's only it's less than $5. I think it's like $3.99 for a bomber. I think that in and of itself suggests that it's a beer that for whatever reason is selling for those who are price conscious, but those who also are kind of like wanting something that they can consume in a larger quantity. It's a bomber. And aside from that, I'm a bit of a saison aficionado. It is not like the absolute best saison in the world. Like I said just earlier about Star Hill, it may not be the absolute best, but I think that as we kind of like keep our focus a little bit more tight here and talk about boat beer and summer beer and lawnmower beer and just hot summer weather beer, that this is an excellent choice. And so within the sort of the narrow confines of that context, what we're talking about today, I will give it absolutely a 4.
Great. Good old boy Dave, what do you think?
Well, I liked it. I don't know that I.
Man,
Yeah.
Wow.
that's a guarded.
Wow.
That is
Wow.
a really guarded. Well, maybe I sort of.
I'm gonna ride the fence. No.
I'll let my proxy good old boy Mike talk to me. I gotta go home with somebody.
I'm gonna say something nicer than what Mike said.
Oh my goodness.
Thanks.
I'm getting already getting the look. Here we go. No.
He's just screwing people.
Just keep playing the foghorn. No, I think it's a good boat beer. I don't know that I liked it as much as Reverend Mark does, but that's what's cool about beer is that not everybody's going to like the same beer the same way. I like it more than Mike does, obviously. I like it less than Mark does, but I do think people could sit on a boat and enjoy it. It's got a nice, even, light flavor. It's not overly. I don't know if this is a word, but it's not overly Belgian-y, you know.
No, that is not a real word.
Well, it's a word now. Okay. No word was a word until somebody made it a word. So now Belgian-y is a word. Okay. So this beer is not too Belgian. Okay, it's just Belgian-y enough to sit on a boat and drink it. So I liked it, and I will give it a 3.
That is just so wrong on so many levels. I mean, that is I just don't know about that.
Well, thank you, good old boy Dave, for adding to our Sips,
Belgian
Suds, and
moment.
Smokes.
Can I now
vocabulary.
get a ride home?
Yeah, well, it's not going to be me. Okay, wow. Well, I have to say this was a great episode, very eye-opening experience here, and we're going to wrap it up today for our SUDS episode. And yes, the Hawks have won their first game against LA Kings. Yes, go Hawks. Wow. Just saying. Okay. Well, thanks to all of our listeners on Sips, Suds, and Smokes. You can catch all of our episodes online on iTunes, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube, Uncle John's Basement for those of you that like
Uncle
those
John's Basement.
deep, dark beers while watching Dr. Zhivago, and Spreaker, our native media host. Our terrestrial radio station hosts are always expanding, and if you would like to hear the show on your favorite radio station, please send them a note and copy us as well. You can reach us online at info@sipsudsandsmokes.com. Our daily tasting notes are flowing out on Twitter every day at Sip, Suds, and Smoke, and our Facebook page is always buzzing with lots of great news about all sorts of things. Do us a favor and take the time to rate this episode if you like listening to us online. That's a big help to us, and we get to see your feedback as well. I want to thank my great hosts today for this amazing episode. From the boat out in the water, good old boy Mike.
This is good old boy Mike. I'm going to ask you to keep on sipping.
And our great Reverend Mark.
Blessings and cheers.
And our good old boy Dave.
Mike, don't goose the geese.
And I'm good old gal
He works hard on
Julianna.
that, doesn't he?
Oh my gosh. Well, this is good old gal Julianna, and I just want to ask you to keep on sipping.
This has been a One Tan Hand production of Sips, Suds, and Smokes, a program devoted to the appreciation of some of the finer slices of life. From the Dude in the Basement Studios, your hosts, the Good Old Boys, will see you all next time.